All right, welcome on back. So, I was watching episode 2 and already, see, I will do that a lot. I will forget about things, I will pick up threads, and I will try to go back and cover things. Definitely comment if you want a little more clarity on anything. If there's something I was talking about, you're like, hey, wait a minute, you never finished this. Can you finish this? I'll be happy to do so. Happy to do so. Um, Anyways, first thing I want to clarify, Batman versus Joker. So I loved the Joker for a few reasons. He was wild, he was funny, and I hate clowns too. I feel like I hate clowns for the same reason that I hate country music. I feel like it's offensive to me because I love the Joker. I love what he stood for a lot of times. I mean, yeah, of course, he was committing crimes and doing bad things in this, but then like understanding like, well, what seems like crime to you might not seem like crime to somebody else. And so, like, if you talk about the actual amount of money that someone, so we talk about Bruce Wayne's parents died in a botched mugging, basically. Like, and that's the main story. I said there's a few different versions. There's also some even conspiracy theories in there that someone was targeting Bruce Wayne and hired the people to mug them. So then there's a conspiracy in some of the universes of Batman where it was actually not even basic people committing crimes on the ground level anyway. It was actually a much more nefarious plan to assassinate this wealthy person, basically, and orchestrated by other wealthy people. Like there was a lot more involved, and it wasn't just that. And that's just one of the stories. The main story is people that were desperate shot and killed Bruce's parents. And Bruce was there. They were at an opera, and they took an alleyway in a city. Not saying, and you should be able to do that. It should be safe enough to where you don't have to worry about that. Unfortunately, it's not, and a lot of it is greed, and that's why it cracks me up when I see Elon complaining about stuff like that, because it's like, this is a blind spot for you. Anyways, no, see, we're going off on a tangent there. Let's go back to Batman. So why Joker? Because Joker generally made more sense, and especially in the Dark Knight, the more recent Joker, before the movie Joker with La Folie or whatever, and then Lady Gaga, which I haven't seen the sequel to that. The first one wasn't all that great, I didn't think. Like, it was okay, but I think it was a lot of build up to get you ready for the second one, and the second one's probably where all the excitement is, and it was more of like the psychological, like degradation of the Joker and all that. But anyways, The Dark Knight though, it just makes so much sense. And he's not doing it like the mob's doing it for money and power and respect and to like or revenge or anything like that. The Joker is just mad about the bigger picture, the more larger problems of the world and taking it out on people, including the mob. Like nobody was safe from the Joker in that video or in that movie. That was like, this is what happens when somebody gets to the top and realizes, you know what, the whole system needs to come down and be reorganized. And I feel like that's actually what we're about to see in America, for better or worse. I mean, although I am pretty confident that we're going to be careful enough about it to where it's going to be very slow moving. It's going to be very sluggish, any actual change anyway. And it's going to be fought tooth and nail back and forth, and they're going to argue, and we're going to end up with something, some good, probably a lot more bad, a lot more corporate greed, unfortunately. Also, I got to go back. I saw I passed some iron. Eventually, I'm going to need a lot of rails. So we need tons of iron. So, anyways, and buckets and all that stuff. But so the Joker idea, I just generally like that because it's like somebody with power that's on the level of Batman. Like Batman, if he even thought you were doing a crime, and there's this funny YouTube guy that he does exactly that. Like if you're stealing soda in Gotham, and Batman shows up out of nowhere and just starts beating the crud out of the camera person, like, oh no, and like, oh, I'm sorry, Batman, I'm sorry, like with that whole trying to look cool or trying to be edgy or trying to be like chic or whatever, like, oh, I'm gonna steal some soda or whatever, nobody's gonna know. And then sure enough, Batman shows up and just beats the snot out of the guy. Like, it's a little overkill, it's a little excessive. So, and that's what we do with the war on weed. And that's why it all comes back to is like, we've been throwing people in jail and prison, especially for growing weed, because that's a manufacture of a Scheduled 1 substance. And that's why it's so important that the scheduling changes. And it still hasn't changed. Like, I'm checking my watch right now. Like, it still hasn't changed. We've been talking about it for years, for multiple presidencies. And, like, I think it's still classified as, I'd have to look up to be sure. And I think that's probably one of the, like, President Trump's first things he's going to announce is like, oh yeah, marijuana, it's legal now. We're done. I'm just done with it. Like, prohibition is over. I'll leave it to the states to decide how to do that because I think it's Idaho and maybe one other state. But Idaho is the only place that Cheech and Chong can't ship their THC gummies that are made from hemp. So it's not even weed like the plant. That's like a funny trick of nature is like, the way it is you could still get the psychoactive chemical, and it is psychoactive. Like, it can mess with your mind if you have too much, or it might affect it in other ways. It's not like mushrooms or anything like that, but I heard people say that, like, you can hallucinate on too much weed, and it's like, kinda, not really. I mean, you're just slower thinking about things. But anyways, this is our reality since the 70s. We've known in the 70s that these things weren't all that deadly or harmful or dangerous if used properly and used safely. And so it's when they're taken out of context or out of all that, that's when it's all dangerous. And so it's interesting, and we're getting a hold of it as a society. But there's still places in the world like Russia that, like, no, there's strict no weed policy. Cannabis is illegal. In fact, they don't even call it cannabis. They stick with the old name or whatever. And with English, it was kind of messed up because we called it marijuana. And that plays off of people's racism, whether they have it or not, or whether they act on it or not. Because everybody has bias and racism. That's how the brain works. It's like we try to compare and contrast things that we know, and it has good intentions. Again, the whole pathway to hell is paved with good intentions. Nobody intends to be like, I'm going to be racist today, or I'm going to specifically target a group of people because I don't like them for whatever reason. But that's what accidentally happens. So they didn't intentionally hurt someone or ruin their day or make them sad, depressed, or what have you. They just accidentally did it. And so that's why so much of it happens, is because we don't point it out or call it out, or maybe we do it too harshly, and then the message isn't received in a positive way. Then it's like, oh God, just calm down. Like, which you never want to tell somebody to calm down. That never works, like almost never. So, we're pretty full up. Let's go deposit some stuff. Basically, it's like searching a couch cushion with needles. Like, we're poking these tunnels equally spaced about, so if I do a side-by-side tunnel, the next tunnel over here will actually just show you. The next tunnel will be here. And actually, it's funny because I'll break through when I go through the next one, and there it'll be. Oh, wow. There's that. I keep forgetting about. That's where the warden is if this wasn't in peaceful. And I will turn it out of peaceful at some point, probably off camera with my son. My daughter doesn't really like to fight things as much. She's more of the nurturing, and that makes sense. Gender roles and all that, but not to get into an argument that way. I'm in the South Park opinion of all that. I think transgender creates a third category of in-between, and I think that everybody still deserves rights. Everybody should be able to get married. None of that should be changed. Like, all of that should still be one person, et cetera, et cetera. And I think most people are in the agreement with that. Like, if you're a person, okay. It's just when the hype, the unnecessary hype from politicians trying to win their political contest cause problems. Let's see, what can we get rid of? Andesite's usually a low-hanging fruit for this. I'll get rid of that for this one. I do like lapis. But anyways, I guess I like the Joker because it's against the norm. What's normally usually considered, like, it's just the accepted society. Don't rock the boat too much because, this and that. But American history is right with, it's just full of learning experiences, like slavery and genocide of Native Americans. Like, and that's something, you think it's bad that people aren't communicating and understanding full problems now. Imagine when the Pony Express was the main form of communication. Like, there's a good chance that you'll never know what it was really like in another area of the country or even the world. So, but now we do. Now I can tell what someone in China is doing right now, or someone in Germany. Like, they could do like, hey, I'm doing this. Oh, okay, hey. Oh, hey, I'm doing this over here. Like, we can have instant communication worldwide now. And I do. I have a network of people all over. Nothing scary. It's my social media. It's these videos. It's the X app. It's like different ways to communicate with people, and then they communicate with each other, and it spreads and it compounds, and hence the positive social engineering. I'm trying to do this intentionally, like help guide people's thinking to a more successful coaching, basically. Oh, also, that's really cute. So my daughter has a fox. You hear the little squeak up here. In fact, I think I can feed it berries. I think I have some berries here. Oh, no, where'd they go? There we go. Whoops, I got the baked potatoes. Let's go feed the fox some berries. I think you can only do it once because then you can mate them or breed them. So, and then, yeah, anyways. Yeah, we'll give you the tour. Here's my son's room up here. Oh, he loves the cherry wood. I was pretty excited about that. And look at that view. Oh my gosh. Like, I'm kind of encroaching with like the temple building, but this is what it was like that. It's like breathtaking. So, anyways, and I'll let him explain that once he's old enough to make videos. So, but for now, and that's just protective. Like, I trust them. They could, but people online are mean potentially. Might be having a bad day, might be hungry. You know, always think before you send a message. Imagine what it feels like being on the receiving end of that message. You know, just little things to just like stop and think, like, how bad can this get? And that's actually saved me from a lot of stuff. And I do have a checkered background. I haven't always been a law-abiding person. Actually, only quite recently have I been a completely and purely law-abiding person. But sometimes the best cybersecurity people are criminals, former criminals, reformed, as it were. Because that's how you think outside the box. If you're already thinking outside the box of laws and regulations, then you're most likely to be thinking outside the box of other things. Like, you know, and it always boils down to, is this hurting people? Is this doing, like, how bad can this get? Exactly that. Like, you know, what's the repercussions of this? Like, what are the ramifications, the repercussions, the drawbacks, the blowback? Like, how is this going to bite me? And that's life too, learning enough of that to where you're like, okay, I know not to do this, this, and this, which is usually stealing. Hitting people is a big one. You never really want to actually hit somebody. And we see it all the time. And that's why wrestling is so, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of wrestling. So that kind of leads people to believe, the people that believe that it's real, it's like, oh, you could just run around and like grab somebody by the neck and slam them down on the ground and be okay. If that happened in real life, that could kill somebody. That could be game over, dead. And in fact, I know somebody that did over 10 years in Lyman Correctional Facility, hardcore prison, because he accidentally killed his cousin in a bar fight. It wasn't even like malicious, like, meh, I'm going to go out and poison someone's water. I'm going to go kill some innocent person. Like, no, it was two people. They had a disagreement. They were out drinking, again, alcohol. You know, it just makes it so much easier for bad things to happen. And if you were to separate that out, like determine like by substance what crime and this and that, most of your crime would go away. Like if you took away everything that was influenced or started by alcohol. Like, oh wait, they had alcohol in their system? Okay, that's irrelevant. Oh wait, this person just had pure weed in their system and they went and murdered somebody. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that's probably almost never happened. There's a chance. But like, if they only had weed in their system, no alcohol, they had a good rest the night before, they had food in their stomach, and then they had cannabis in their system, it just doesn't happen. Like, those are crimes of passion, usually when alcohol is involved, or premeditated, all that stuff planned out. But again, just cannabis? No, there's probably like stimulants or opiates or some like hard drugs in there, or, you know, or maybe somehow involved. So yeah, and more people are realizing this. Like, wait a minute, the way that we understood this is completely wrong. So actually, wait. So and I have a ton of these. Yeah, see, they're all expensive now. I would have to go AFK here for a while for them to go back down in price. So let's go ahead and leave that. Let's go back to hunting for geodes and talking about what it is that makes the Joker Tower. You can't trump a Trump, but you can joke with a Joker. And I'll explain that in one day. One day when I'm a little more comfortable with mental states and stuff. Sorry, so I had my own bout of mental illness, a period there, and I was put on psychotropics, and I saw some crazy things. Like, and I've done a lot of substances in my life, but man, psychotropics are the scariest. And those are usually used for mental health issues, crises, or whatever, sometimes addiction, sometimes suicide, depression. Mine was, I was on Adderall prescribed, and which is a heavy stimulant. And great stuff for getting things done, not so great for being nice to people. And that's why I didn't like it. Like, I mean, I started to notice my behavior, my attitude towards people was very short, very curt, very, like, not very polite. and I didn't like it. So I was actually going to talk to my doctor about weaning off of it, or at least reducing it, and then maybe even just going off of it. Honestly, I'd like to explore cannabis as a medication. Like, I think that would be, and I haven't done that either, but it's like I've just been using it for so much of my life, and that seems to help. Been diagnosed with the ADHD. I think everybody that uses a bunch of tech has a susceptibility to ADHD. I think it's more just like how we're wired anymore with the splintered attention span, but yet being able to focus at least enough on each individual task or thing to be able to accomplish that a task or goal, something like that. And that's a very broad range of like, hey, everybody that uses tech has ADHD. Like, give or take, but we're noticing it a lot more. All right, I don't even remember where we were. I think you hear these cool cave noises. Oh, this was. Let's see, this one. There's a lot of stuff here. I think that's the sunken city or whatever. I don't even know what they're called. Anyways, let's start doing this. So I do one, two, and this way. So by my understanding, and if it was perfect, I'd be doing that all the way down, but it's not lining up. I would even stagger it to where like maybe it would be this one. So then it wouldn't be stacked completely on top of each other. Or maybe it would. I don't know. Either way, you gotta think. So anything that's in this row will be accessible. Anything that's in this row, like, okay, so anything here, 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 or here, all the way back, will be accessible by digging these out and these out. And you also see what's below you and what's above you. The most efficient without completely destroying everything, in my opinion. So, and we will continue. And we're just going to keep poking these tunnels or these needles into a cushion, basically looking for a piece of paper, a letter. In this situation, a geode. For those that don't know about Minecraft geodes, well, geodes in general are a rock where water and minerals were able to get into the rock and are trapped in there. And then over time, they form crystals and minerals. And for various reasons, but I think that's the main reason. And then, because I just saw a geode busted open and they were talking about, well, the water inside here hasn't been seen for millions of years or, something like that. And the crystals have just formed over time because of whatever's in the water. And like, oh, it's really cool stuff. And I'm only a very novice. I have a very brief understanding of geology, and it's my favorite science. It's because pretty crystals and rocks and stuff. And I grew up, both of my parents were miners for a time, and so we had a bunch of minerals and stuff. I have a chunk of iron pyrite. It's probably only worth like $5, but it's like a chunk almost as big as my hand. And it looks like gold. It's fool's gold. And like, yeah, so even though it looks like gold, it's not as valuable as, because if it was real gold, I could probably buy a house. I don't know, maybe not that much, but like gold's very expensive. Okay, what's the story here? Is this a cave? I don't know what I was doing here. Let's go check this out. I think it's more likely. Oh yeah, I was getting rid of the. Yeah, I tried to get a bunch of diorite. In fact, let's go ahead and get that up because I use a ton of diorite for the temples and whatnot. I like to make polished diorite stuff. So, anyways, yeah, back to the Joker. So with Batman, it's some very wealthy person that, granted, he's doing all these other things to try to give back to the community, like charities, donations. But there's just certain things that just leave a bad taste in my mouth. Like, also in the Dark Knight, when they're looking for Harvey Dent, maybe it's the Dark Knight Rises or something. I don't know. But anyways, it's the one with the Joker and Harvey Dent. Two-Face and the Joker. Two very interesting characters that I grew up with watching the cartoon, where Mark Hamill was the Joker. And that's possibly my favorite Joker. Second favorite is Heath Ledger. Rest in peace. That's really sad. I wish he could have made more Jokers, and also sad that he died. Like, and I think that everybody would say that if given time. That's one of those more implied things that, unfortunately, and that's a straw man fallacy. It's like if you don't hear it, like there's a big tendency to assume, oh wait, no, um, uh, yeah, that people are evil or inhuman or monsters or whatever, because how could you not think of the children? Won't somebody please think of the children? I forget what that's even off of, but that's an ongoing joke like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, like the reoccurring themes in cartoons. It's like, of course we're thinking of the children. We never stop thinking about the children, but for this situation right here, what we're thinking about is like this, and this. And it's like, it just shows the ridiculous nature of it, problem solving without understanding all the factors, all the pieces, the tributaries to the problem. So, and that's a lot of coaching too. Coaches, they have a big job. Like you got these kids that are trying to play a sport, and you get in thinking, oh, I'm going to teach them how to play basketball. Let's just say for a basketball coach, I'm going to teach them how to shoot the ball, how to dribble, how to all this. And I played a lot of basketball. I was terrible at it because I'm switch-handed and like I can't shoot to save my life. Like I'm horrible at accuracy, and it's still to this day, like I'm more right hand dominant, but and then I just kind of lost interest in it and didn't stick with it enough to really learn how to shoot and how to be really good at it. But I was really good at playing as a team. I could steal the ball, pass it, whatever. The point is the coach gets there. I'm going to teach these kids how to play basketball, and then they say, "Oh, my dad beats me," or "I haven't eaten good in like 2 or 3 days." Like, whoa, wait a minute. This just got a lot more serious. The problems that I was going to try to solve, like, oh, let's work on your jump shot. Let's work on your layup. Like, let's work on ball handling. Like, let's work on not traveling, stuff like that. Like the basic things. You're not doing that today. You're possibly talking to social services. Like, you got to try to figure out how to make sure this kid survives. Like, oh God, or is it that serious too? Because that's the other thing. You don't want to be stepping on toes, especially when it's exaggerated. And we all know that kids tend to exaggerate because their frame of reference isn't the same as an adult's frame of reference. Like, this might not be as significant, this problem that they're upset about. I mean, or it might be significant to them to where it would seem like screaming bloody murder is acceptable, but like to anybody else, be like, oh wait, no, this isn't that big of a deal, especially when hormones are involved, puberty and all that. Like middle school coaches probably have it the hardest, and then high school, and then elementary school, because then it's more just like, you know, So, in fact, I remember talking to my coach. He asked me, he's like, "So you done with all that nonsense? Like, are you still doing all that?" I was like, "No, no, 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 no. I've behaved now. I'm good," because he knew I was involved in some pretty sketchy stuff. I mean, they didn't want to say it outright because then once it's said, then it needs to be addressed. But it's like they just did the best they could, tried to coach in positive ways, and yeah. So, and one day I will be pretty open about all that. I just need to make sure I'm not going to get in trouble. That's my biggest thing. Like, I don't care. I don't want to get anyone else in trouble because it's not their deal. Like, they didn't sign up for that. They are trying to solve their problems. Even if they did break the law, they're going to be careful and not letting people know about that. But then someone else comes along and is like, "Oh, hey, I brag about this," and then, that's not cool because they weren't planning to deal with that. Now, granted, in a perfect world, everybody would confess all the bad things they did and not do it. But this isn't a perfect world. We still put people in prison for weed. Like, it's far from perfect, and we're fixing it. So I think once that's fixed, I think I'll be a little more open about things I did. Anyways, so the Joker, and I relate to the Joker a lot because those certain laws didn't make sense to me. Basically, weed laws. I think that's a safe thing to say. And I have gotten in trouble for dealing. So, like, I have technically repaid my debt to society. Literally. They charged me $3,000 as a drug dealer surcharge. And they said their reasoning was, well, we're sure this isn't the first time. And so this is for all the other times. Like, all right, cool. That's a pretty big blank check. Like, and I'm glad that, maybe it's high, maybe it's low, whatever. Like, it wasn't good at the time. I had to pay $3,000 that I didn't have after losing my main job. So, yeah, and those are the things that I'm working to fix now through hippie farms, a capybara cafe, capybara, however you want to say it. I love capybaras. Capybara, there we go. We'll call it capybara. Kind of like Colorado and Colorado. People aren't from Colorado if they say Colorado, because that's how you think you're supposed to say it. But anybody who lives here is like, nah, it's Colorado. Because then if you're asking directions or trying to talk to family or anything like in this state, as other places too, Missouri, Arkansas, Arkansas, I don't mean it to be disrespectful to those places, but that's just the linguistics, and the linguistics can often come off as disrespectful if you say it the wrong way or intentionally say it the wrong way. Actually got almost in an argument with somebody because he kept calling it Buena Vista. And I'm like, yes, it's Spanish. Yes, it's supposed to be Buena Vista, but if you knew anybody from there, it's not how it's pronounced. They're actually pretty upset about it if you pronounce it intentionally the other way. And there is a lot of racism up there, but that's not why. It's just if you're used to calling something something, and then someone comes along and tells you you're wrong, that's messed up. Why? Why would you do that? Does that make you sleep better at night? Like in this particular situation, I think that was involved, like literally. So that's why, again, that's why I say, like, from my understanding, if people have a good night's sleep and food in their stomach, they're very, very unlikely to be a jerk, to commit a crime, to feel desperate to do either of those. Like, they're much more behaved. And it's a lot easier, and myself included. If I have a good night's sleep and if I've eaten, then I'm a lot better. And so And thankfully, so it's not all doom and gloom. In fact, it's very little doom and gloom anymore. So we have things like the Bill Gates, or the Bill and Melinda French Gates, I forget what it is, because they had their own problems of divorce, marriage, all that. But the goal of the foundation is still increase digital infrastructure in places. I'm part of their newsletter too, and I've spent some time on their websites. I'm not an expert by any means, but these are the things that he's concerned about, and this foundation is concerned about. And Bill Gates, dumpster diver, stole code. If he did that today, he could be in prison, blah, 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 all this stuff. Did some shortcuts, made Microsoft, made a wonderful company, a wonderful product that so many people use, so many people abuse and misuse too. And that's what we hunt as cyber professionals. But anyways, it got a ton of money, worth billions of dollars, and is giving back to the world in insane ways, like beautiful ways. There's the nuclear facility up in Wyoming. It's some town that starts with a K. And Wyoming is notorious for their coal mining. There's a lot of coal mining that goes on up there, and now they're getting a nuclear power plant that may be a new revolutionary type of. It's still fusion, or no, sorry, it's still fission. Fusion is the new experimental type of nuclear energy that we've found that there's a net gain in energy. So like, there's a lot of energy put into lasers to fuse two materials together, and then there's some resulting energy from the fusion that is just slightly more than the energy put in. So it's not really all that great yet, but it has potential. And in fact, Neil deGrasse Tyson, there's a video of him talking about it on Fox Business. And for all the people that hate Neil out there, first off, screw you. But no, I'm sorry, I love Neil. He's great. He's funny. He's smart. He talks about things, and he'll actually like really go in depth about things. He kind of talks over people a bit, and I think that's more of his own ADD spectrum or whatever. Because again, I don't think any of that's really completely real. I think it's just a byproduct of being nerds. Like if you use a lot of video games or you have a bunch of like sensory input bombarding you all the time, and you have to pick and choose which ones you pay attention to, or which ones you respond to, and how you respond, like how you just use tech, and so. And mostly it's a bunch of gamer boys. Now, thankfully, it's transitioning to gamer kids in general, and the gender roles aren't as invasive. And that's the part that I do agree with. The whole gender stuff is, and I think honestly there wouldn't be such discrepancy if we just treated women right first off, and then also treated ourselves and each other better. I mean, a lot of that, like respect, lack of it, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And think about a car wreck. Nobody intends to crash a car. Nobody wakes up, unless they have some serious problems going on. They don't wake up and be like, you know what? I'm gonna slam into the back of somebody just because I want to do it. That doesn't happen. That's not a normal situation. For like 99% of the situations, that's not going to happen. Now, if somebody's mad, their boyfriend or girlfriend just dumped them, or they just found their significant other cheating in any way, shape, or form, which is another kind of miscommunication that often gets blown out of proportion, and something like that, then emotion takes over the logic, and then bad things happen, or bad things are much more likely to happen. Not guaranteed. People might be able to hold their composure through a lot of it, and then finally break down and do something terrible one day. I don't know. But anyways, the car accident can happen. So then what do you do? How do you react to a car accident? Because nobody intended. It was an unintended consequence of society, of life. Might end your life. Like it could be very serious. You could lose an arm, a leg, your whole life. Things like that. So what we need to do is we need to disarm those situations as much as we can, prevent as much of that as we can, put in the safety features, guardrails, and all that to prevent car crashes. And if a car crash has to happen, like it's its time, like fate or whatever, if you believe in that, like you're fated to crash on this day. Especially if you've watched the Final Destination movies, like those are a trip. Like those are profound. So, oh, we're already done with episode 3. Ah, all right. So, anyways, yeah, I've got a lot of time today, so we'll try to get a few more out. But I'm trying to also make sure that I finish as much of the topics as I can. I love the Joker. He's still one of my favorite characters, and I think he's a lot of people's favorite characters, or at least a lot of people like him. That's why or the idea of him. In fact, if you watch the TV show Gotham, that's profound too, because then like anybody can be the Joker. Like it's the ha ha graffiti everywhere. So there's like a little Joker in all of us, and because people are a lot more likely to relate to the poor, mentally ill person that went through extremes than the playboy billionaire that just has so much money and no problems to really worry about. So they have all the time in the world to do these things. And they can try to justify it any way they want. They do. They try to make it seem like he's tired. He's like burning the candle at both ends. Nah, the dude doesn't have to worry about being unemployed, losing his house, getting kicked out, like having to live on the streets, like be in a soup kitchen, like nothing. Bruce Wayne never had to worry about that. Whereas everybody else does, or well, 99% of or 97% of this country has to have that as a concern at the back of their mind. Like, if I don't act right, I could be eating at a soup kitchen or living in a homeless shelter. Like, everybody is within an inch or like one or two paychecks away from being in a homeless shelter. So that's why I say, like, oh, well, he's out there beating up people for trying to rob each other. Well, let's try to fix it to where people aren't feeling like they have to rob each other. And then you don't have to have some guy dress up in tights running around and beating the crap out of people that, like, it's like, fix it to where none of that happens. And then problem solved, non-issue. So anyways, we got to cut this one off. I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta, or ta-ta for now. I will see you in the next one.